If this was the message you're wanting to communicate, how can you do it in sort of more subtle ways that's not in your face?
There's moments in the movie that really stand out. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody, instead of a bum, which is what I am.
It definitely created a division in the community.
But if they become the main thing that's about the moral or the political elements, they're boring. They're so boring.
Talking to me?
I think this is a big...
Hello and welcome. We've just been dancing to the theme music. My name is Thomas. This is Nick. We are the Video Lineup Podcast. I just introduced you there. That's okay. I want to blaze through.
Amazing.
This week in the AFI Top 100 Films of All Time, we are doing On The Waterfront, a 1954 classic. They're all classics.
Yes.
That's why they're in the list. Nick, do you have a summary for us?
So it's a ex-prize fighter, Terry Malloy, who has left the boxing game to work on the docks in New Jersey. And it's sort of his journey of wrestling with union corruption, finding love, confronting his own inner dissatisfaction with what he's done in life and his past failings.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a hero's journey of, being beaten, going low, and then the resurrection,
I got to say, I had the same thought. There's actually one particular shot which will, a little later in the movie where he's not necessarily being, the priest comes and says, hey, don't, be brave with bullets and stuff. But where the camera's low and it sort of pans up as he walks towards it. And I had that exact thought at that moment. I was like, I think this movie's doing that. But black and white, really sort of gritty cinematography, shot all on location in Hoboken. Yeah. Which I think is the home where Frank Sinatra's from. He's from Hoboken, New Jersey. Yeah.
Did you hear that the initial vision was a bit different, where they were going to film in colour and the story was a bit different? But
no, I struggled with this one. So my knowledge of extra stories is limited. No, I'm not as full of as much trivia as I was just reeling it off for Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
After Wizard of Oz, I felt like I was high on candy, lollies, as we say.
And this was not a candy film.
After this, I felt like I just read like a whole bunch of corruption stories in the newspaper and the death of someone's brother and a little girl who had good hope, all these bad things is like, oh, this is heavy. I'm sorry. I'm not there for it. This is not where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's start off with the acting, I guess, before we hear about your thoughts.
Yeah, don't listen to my opinion on the movie. Good call.
What were your thoughts?
Have we sufficiently led into it though? We've given the summary. We're here for.
I think so.
Is there anything else that we need to like preface for people who haven't seen the movie? I mean, this is Marlon Brando, so we already did the Godfather. Yeah, that's 1972. Yeah. This is 1954. So what's that? 18 years.
Yeah.
So this is 30-odd-year-old Marlon Brando. What else have we got for people that haven't seen the movie? It's based on a series. It's based on. Is there a play that was based on a series of articles or something? So it's drawing a lot from real life.
Well, I think initially it was written and it was called The Red Hook.
Yeah, I saw something about Arthur Miller, who did Death of a Salesman and The Crucible and stuff. There was like some way he was involved. There is so much going on with the backstory of how this story came to be told. Yeah, that it's like it's of the time, but also I guess we should just like break it down. Into the good call, lead into the acting, because every time I think, should we give some context about this? It's sort of like, can you be bothered? Like there's all the House Un-American Activities. There's like a split between Arthur Miller, who wasn't even involved in this movie, and Elia Kazan, who directed it, who dib-a-dobbed essentially. But there's a bit of history that you'd have to know that
we can go into that in maybe the theme section of the podcast.
Nicholas, you are keeping us on, and I'm like, no, let's go crazy. All right, acting.
What were your thoughts on the acting and the way the film was shot?
Okay, so two different thoughts. Well, number one, the movie was shot awesome. I really liked the way it looked.
Because a lot of it was filmed on location.
Yeah, I read was everything was filmed on location.
Yeah.
Every location was a real location in Hoboken.
Which really added to the film,
Yeah.
I thought.
It added a bit to the, like, I hate to say it, but like the blahness of the locations. Like there was not a lot of hope. You know, there's a difference between having like a street, you know, a wet down street in LA that's standing in for a dark part of New York City, and you know, it feels like Gotham City or something. You might have actually shot in Chicago, but they're staging it like it's Gotham City, and it, you know, it's still meant to be a dark, scary street with a lot of the same elements. But when you actually just shoot it in a street in Hoboken, there's something about it that just goes, they're taking the shine off everything. It is meant to feel, I guess it feels like a documentary a bit. It's not shaky cam. It's still steady, you know, and you can see what's going on, but everything's crisp and sharp. There's a lot of digital noise that they shot on the Sony A7S, did they? 1954. It's well, that's older EX3, I guess. But no, there's a lot of film grain going through it, you know. So it's really gritty, but it's just looks nice. That's
all intentional. So they could have. Are you saying they could have made it more crisp?
Like it's 1954. I keep saying so. Like you saw Citizen Kane.
Yeah,
like that wasn't that much film grain. You know, there it's black and white. 1939 was all color, and it had Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. There were plenty of color movies before then.
Yeah,
you know. 1954. A lot of Hitchcock was already in color.
Yeah, so
they definitely could have done it like that. But I mean, that's how it was shot. What do you think of how it was shot? We'll go to the acting next because you've asked two questions and we've
I did. I really enjoyed it. Like I have no context on, you know, what was available in other films at that time at all. So I was just watching it for what it was. So
my only context is like movies that everybody else knows. Hitchcock, and I don't know tons of movies that are from that era, but
I definitely, this is transitioning to the acting, but the way it was acted sort of reminded me a lot of modern acting techniques, I guess.
Yeah.
As you said, it was a documentary style. You're peering into a situation.
Yeah, this way that Brando was talking and acting and everything, to me, maybe I was looking for it, stood out as opposed to everybody else.
Yeah.
Because this movie, I'll just point blank say I didn't love it as a movie. I didn't enjoy it. It just felt sort of heavy in a kind of like newsreel kind of way. And I think that's probably what it was intended to do.
Yeah.
And it did feel like it was a play. I should have checked. I'm pretty sure it was based on a play that was written by Bud Schulberg or something. Yeah. It felt to me like a play. It felt like, here's a scene between these two people, and then here's a scene between these two people. And a handful of times the music comes in through the scene, but a whole bunch of times towards the beginning, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but it felt like the music just rose at the very end of the scene and then led you into the next scene, which was on a very clear location, you know, or down a street or something. I mean, every movie's like that. It's hard to critique it, but it felt like everything was a play. And because I felt like everything was a play, I felt like I could see the actors that were clearly playing caricature type people, but it wouldn't have been as big a deal because that's Casablanca. Casablanca's all like that.
Yep.
But then you grab Casablanca and you throw mumbling Marlon Brando into it, which isn't a criticism. He's doing that sort of style.
Ahead of his time.
He's approaching it in a much more naturalistic kind of way. And I think the scenes that he had, like Eva Marie Saint, even though she's really good, she's clearly not doing exactly the same sort of thing to me.
Yeah.
I think she's great in it.
Yeah.
But it's like he's like,
it's just clashing.
It's clashing.
Yeah.
It's a bit. It's not bad, but you know, all of the gangsters, they're all caricatures. You know, the dad, Eva Marie Saint's dad, you know, even the way he handles her, turns it around, you know, it just doesn't sort of feel as natural.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's probably it's just of the time. This movie feels so of the time.
Yeah, there's an example of a scene where Marlon Brando was doing the method acting where Eva dropped her glove, and that was unintentional, and he picked it up and started just fumbling with it, sort of as you would in real life. But the commentator was saying that in the past they just leave it there. Like, that's not part of the scene kind of thing. So
you do the scene, you do the lines, those sorts of things. They must have been like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
What? Oh, this is great. Cool. I don't know how to do that exactly. Yeah. And there's definitely a few scenes where the actors, like the scene where he has with his brother Charlie in the back of the cab.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. They're both really good. I can't remember what the guys. It's not Rod Steiger, is it?
I can't
Carl
remember.
Malden was the priest. I feel bad. I should know all of the names.
His name was Charlie.
Charlie
Malloy.
Yeah. Charlie Malloy. I thought that was a really good scene. There's a bunch of really good scenes in this movie, but the whole reason to see this movie is to see Marlon Brando just acting in a way that eventually becomes the way everyone acts.
Yeah. I did hear that at the time, just before this was filmed, there was a court case with Paramount where they were basically restricting sort of smaller films and independent films. And I think they lost the court case, and it opened up for a lot of smaller independent film companies to come in, and that was Columbia at the time, I think.
Oh, wow.
Supposedly.
Nicholas with all the research. Lead on, good sir. You've got a notebook and everything.
Because the director as well was an independent film director. He didn't work for any major film company. And
I guess the studio system will still be cooking
along.
So
I think the Paramount, and I think they approached Fox initially, had a vision for it which was quite different to what it ended up being.
The interesting thing, this is a movie largely about politics, whether it's actual politics or, as we understand it, all sort of like the politics of the unspoken things between everybody, the values we all hold, and if you transgress against those values, because it's all about this union. The story is essentially that there's this corrupt union down on the waterfront at the docks, and the longshoremen who, work there and want to get a job every day. The union is corrupt and sort of picking and choosing who gets to work as they see fit, which is not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's just funny that this just as soon as you start to delve into politics of it, I find it just so boring.
Okay.
Really boring. I mean, it feels like when it's explicitly about that, even you're talking about like Paramount were doing this and that, it probably fed into what they were doing with this movie and the ideas that they were trying to get across, and somehow this just wasn't as fun.
So you think it had an intentional message from the start, and
probably
sort of just trying to blankly communicate?
Yeah, I might be really unfair and just say I think the reason this movie is where it is because of the political climate at the time, and everyone's got this appreciation for it. It was shot really well. Leonard Bernstein, even though it's not like Bernstein, it's not particularly memorable. He made the music for it, so he's famous. So it's got all these elements, but it's like as it stands alone, it's a pretty boring movie. I didn't like it. I don't understand it. But the thing that I'm getting at with the whole politics thing is that as soon as you make things pretty close to the reality, like there's actual politics in it that feel like they're trying to, be a, what's the word when you have a story and it's an allegory?
Yeah.
A little bit like that for what's happening in real life with this House Un-American Activities Commission, communism staff dobbing on your fellow man. It just feels not as interesting as if something's a little more layered. And
it seems to have tainted modern films as well.
Oh,
where the political message comes through. It's
excellent transition to relevant things that I didn't even think of at this moment. Yeah, that's so true. Makes them boring. They're all boring.
Yeah.
If they're trying to say something and they've got all these amazing creative things going on, but they're trying to say something and there's not enough layers or heart in between what the message could be as we apply it. And, that's all politics is,
Yeah.
Then if it's just too close to it's like percentages more politics, it's just doesn't land, and eventually, you're hanging on. And I can't think of why anybody would want to watch this movie that wasn't a diehard classic film aficionado. And I really like old movies, but
yeah. So how, if this was the message you're wanting to communicate, how can you do it in sort of more subtle ways that's not in your face?
Oh, I'm not going to write a movie right now. I'm just going to pick on people who've made the hard work of making a real movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good question. Like, I don't know. I can't say that, the movie would have been better if they'd done something different. It's just not for me. This movie's not for me.
Yeah.
And it's obviously got an audience, and that's fine.
So who is it for?
Well, is it for you?
It's not a movie I'd go back to again and again. It's nice to watch maybe once or twice. So
I'm happy to have this one behind us.
Yeah.
The same way, it was only 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But did you get bored?
Yeah. It wasn't painful to watch. Like, the acting obviously was good. The story was okay, but it's not life-changing.
No. It just felt like everything was either no emotion and Marlon Brando was doing, or it was big emotion. Like when the kid kills the flipping pigeons.
Yeah, yeah.
That felt like it was not a real thing that really would happen in a real story.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it would. Maybe this is all just how the temperature of the room when I was watching it. But it just didn't. There's moments in the movie that really stand out, and I think there's if you've ever heard the line, "I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody, instead of a bum," which is what I am. That whole scene. Like, there's some movies where it's like, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
The scene's great. It's all great, but the whole movie's great. But the line on its own stands out, right?
Yeah.
But for me, that entire car ride nearly between the Charlie and Terry, that scene makes that line. And like the whole scene is a great scene.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's fantastic. And the music coming in and you really feel it. But everything else felt melodramatic, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
How many times can I say I don't like this movie? So.
You really hate it.
I don't hate it. I just didn't enjoy it. It's not for me. This movies I hate, but we'll go into that another time. But what any other thoughts from you?
Well, I guess some of the themes, like, do you want to go into
those? Don't ask me. You're the boss. Go for it.
I'm the boss.
I'm riding along with, you've got the notepad. He who has the notepad rules.
I have a terrible memory, so
I have one eye that keeps going blurry, so I'm just going to scratch my eye aggressively while you do that.
Yeah. There's another quote by KO, I think it was.
Yeah.
The guy that wore the little beanie.
Yeah, did KO get crushed by the...
Yeah. So he
actually did live, you know that, and he started a sports TV streaming show in Australia channel
on Twitch.
No. You can sign up to KO when you get, and you watch rugby or whatever.
Yeah,
that's a joke I might cut out of the podcast. Sorry, continue.
That's all right. There's a quote. So there's a scene where the priest has organised a group of the dock workers.
Yeah, in that church they have the meeting.
Yeah. And KO, he's asking, why is no one speaking up? Who killed? I can't remember the guy's name. Joey.
Eva Marie Saint's brother.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of the movie where it opens. Yeah.
Yep. And KO says, we're D&D, which means deaf and dumb. No matter how much we hate the torpedoes, we ain't gonna rat. Which I thought's interesting about how the union created the situation where they're sort of begging for work. It's like the union need them to work, but they've flipped it around where they're like, no, you need us. We're going to select who's going to come in and work today, and some of them miss out. Yeah, and they're like they'll take anything. It's interesting, the idea of how they destroyed the spirit of these. A lot of them were strong, fit men, and they were just hunched over, and their soul was beaten out of them.
Yeah, right. You are. It's I think it's covering the elements. The part of the reason I wasn't as engaged with the movie is that it covers the elements of the story I'm least interested in. I'm not going to say me personally I would be like, yeah, let's rat him out, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know what, I just don't understand why people would suffer underneath such tyranny.
You don't think that happens? I'm not going to mention any recent
You mean
circumstances.
Pandemic lockdowns and stuff like that?
Yeah,
I think you're 100% right.
But like for someone to put their head up and push back, you could lose your career.
You do, yeah. People in this instance, they lose their lives.
So it's often those that put their hand up and try and speak out will lose the most, and then
that's
people
true.
follow along after. But
yeah, I think in that instance, yeah. Look, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I think it mimics society to a T. I didn't think so in the past, but I think because of recent circumstances, I'm like, we all just want to be left alone to, work's an important thing in providing.
And evil men and women, just go and take advantage of things, and it's usually them that got their hands on the levers, and they're just so unlikable. I guess I'm interested in the question of, why is it that when people organise like that it is always those people who grab the levers?
Yeah.
Or, that get in charge. Why is it always, they might not be explicitly evil, don't have to be all like Johnny Friendly, the gangster who just want to kills people, or, doesn't care, or clearly is portrayed as an animal. Why is it that when we do form unions or we organise like that, it's always the same kind of person, that is just wanting to be in charge of these things? There's just some hole in them that has to be, and everyone else is just sort of like, hey, I'm a Sparky. Can I just be a Sparky?
Yeah.
That means electrician in Australia.
Yeah.
Can I just do that? I don't want to be, and there'll be someone who is also an electrician or something, and they'll form some group, some union, or I don't know what they'll do. And they'll go, oh, that's all right, I'll run the minutes, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll jump on the board. And, they consolidate power and they make decisions and control people because they get off on that.
Well, they end up becoming the people that they were meant to sort of unionize against.
Exactly.
The politicians.
Yeah. I think this is why immediately when you start to analyze this movie beyond the acting, you immediately get into politics, because the entire movie really is just about that. And I feel like if it were made today, it would. There's a plane again. Last time I said that, I couldn't hear in the podcast, so I may as well keep going. It would be, unfortunately, it'd be a TV series.
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah.
All the characters would be all much more fleshed out, and I think it would be a TV series, and they'd be able to explore these different ideas. And
I was wondering what your thoughts were on the character, the father. Was it Father Barry?
Carl Malden's priest.
Yeah.
Is it Carl?
Father Barry. I remember
Father Barry.
Yeah.
What a cracker of a name.
Did you like him as a character?
No.
No.
He's a great actor. He's a priest. But he's like, they're props. I mean, I said this about the movie Napoleon, and when I did a little review on that, and not on this channel, but on another channel, we'll link below.
Yeah.
They're just he kind of was just any priest. He wasn't uniquely a priest of any specific personality or anything.
Yeah.
People had problems. He swept in, and he was the voice of, like pure behavior and stuff. The biggest thing he did was have a beer with Terry. Is that it?
Yeah.
Was that, I don't know, 1954? As everyone like, the priest in a movie is having a beer. I mean, like, we lose some context. In Psycho, you see a toilet at some point, and you don't usually see that. Or
I think the worst thing was when Terry told the priest to go to hell. Apparently, that wouldn't normally get through.
See, this is where it's like, okay, this is where old movies lose sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's like interesting that you see Mr. and Mrs. Brady in the same bed. That's before that. You don't see them in the same bed. They're always in separate beds for some reason.
Yeah.
All those sort of things. They're a bit interesting, but in this movie, like, really, that's.
I did appreciate, because at the start there's where Eva's brother was dead, and the priest was praying over him and sort of making the experience just sort of a religious one and not showing a lot of compassion and emotion, I felt. And then she chastised him, and I think you saw a turning point from there where he became no longer religious but sort of about the people and sort of got his hands dirty, which I appreciated. I think that demonstrated sort of more real active faith.
Yeah, well said. Again, I just feel like everything is like people were like turning switches, though, you know. Like he was there to illustrate that point to the audience. That's what he was there for.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it felt like characters were there to illustrate a point. You know, like the Eva Marie Saint's dad is there to sort of illustrate an old sort of world-worn guy who's just, you know, weakened by the system or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone just felt like a point. And I think that's why Terry Malloy really, like his performance. And if someone else gave a just caricature performance and it wasn't Marlon Brando, this movie isn't on this list. That's my guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not like the greatest insight on reviewers, but I just feel like everything, like, yeah, cool. It illustrates like his faith is, but I don't think the average person nowadays is going to give one hoot about that.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to feel real and you're going to be bored.
Yeah. Yeah. I see your point.
Give me more points to shoot down with just arrogance and I mean, and Nick, I keep saying I don't like it. Tell me, what did you think of this movie? Like, tell me, what did you think? Stop reading your deep. You know, you read your notes. I'll shush.
What about the point where remember where Terry, he gets a gun, and this is after his brother is killed, and then he's going to basically
kill Johnny Friendly in his place of business.
He wants to get revenge, but then Father Barry comes in to stop that. And the whole idea of revenge and justice, because I think in a lot of movies, revenge is not glorified, but promoted as a good thing, you know, in a lot of action films.
Yeah. Well, the bad guy getting his due.
His due. Like that's sort of painted as justice to get revenge, which this didn't.
Well, I think that like if we look at a movie like Die Hard, for instance, you know, like Hans Gruber and like there's a bunch of caricatures around him with the gangsters or the robbers, you know.
Yeah.
And that's okay that we dispense of them violently. We as an audience aren't supposed to care. Look, he's been shot to bits. Look,
that's their purpose.
That's their purpose. But when it comes to Hans Gruber, you know, our hero's response to Hans Gruber is he's trying to stop him from fall off the side of the building. Spoiler alert for Die Hard 1988.
I haven't seen it.
Coming. Well, we'll have to. It's actually getting 4K re-release this year. It's in the cinemas, so I'm actually thinking about going to see it in the cinemas. But he tries to rescue him. So there's probably happens a lot in movies, you know, where our lead character isn't supposed to enjoy shooting and killing and destroying the enemy. We're supposed to acknowledge that there's some element of revenge is wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when movies show the character just killing the bad guy, you know, gleefully. It's typically, like you say, maybe a big Arnie action movie or something like that. I feel like this movie, like that is a good point. You know, like the portrayal of revenge is, I don't know. For me, I feel a bit differently about it. But you're probably right. There are movies where they just let them enjoy. Like, I mean, Inglourious Bastards. They just
I think a lot of action films, like there's the main character getting revenge.
Well, I feel as though like that would be in Arnie movies and things, but I keep thinking of the moment where it's like they're trying to get him arrested or something instead.
Well, it doesn't make it.
Or it's only because the chance that the good guy gives them, the bad guy tries to take advantage of, and then the good guy has to blow him away. You know, those sorts of things.
Well, I think it doesn't make for good film when you've just got like a court case and then they go to jail.
No, not usually.
It's a bit boring.
Yeah, it would be at the very end of an action movie if you got a 5-minute court scene and then they're like sentenced to 18 months probation. You're like,
yeah.
That's not what we wanted.
Well, I found
you can't prove that he killed those 6 children. You can't prove that he blew that building up. And he gets a really good lawyer. And then Hans Gruber's just free to walk the streets.
Yeah.
Spits in the face and then it just goes the end.
Yeah.
Actually, that'd be more close to reality probably.
Yeah, that's true. Going back to the court scene in here, what were your thoughts on that? I thought it was like they set up this scene and it was such a quick shot and his testimony was a bit I was expecting a grand speech.
That's why I didn't like the movie, dude, because it's everything feels like a play. And
I wasn't sure whether he was being forced into it's kind of like he was begrudgingly confessing.
It felt like what he wanted to do was kill Johnny Friendly. He wanted to go to his base instincts of being a violent thug as what he has decided that's who he is.
A bum.
A bum, which is what he is, yeah. And then he begrudgingly put down the gun and the weapon, begrudgingly set aside his desire to kill this guy and utilized just speaking to put him, sort him out. It didn't do anything in the end and just wrecked everything, which turns out he was right.
Yeah. Then he had to go and punch on.
Yeah, and then he had to go that way anyway. You know, it just shows it's all messy and ugly and it didn't it feels like what's the real crescendo of the purpose of these scenes? It's not like we're all waiting for him to defeat Johnny Friendly or we're all trying to solve some crime as an audience or we're all, waiting for the detectives to sort this out or there's no, it's like a whole bunch of little mountains that the characters have to climb.
Yep.
And when they do, it's nothing afterwards. Then they punch on at the end that you think that a whole bunch of thugs have beaten him up and for some reason they just stop and they either leave him on the ground, at the very end when Terry Malloy goes and confronts them all. Yeah. Then you think all the longshoremen after ignoring him and he just walks down to confront them and they all of a sudden all because the script says they have to, they're all following him. Yeah. And they all just stand there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you know who stops hundreds of longshoremen from going and helping when they know that they should? 2 gangsters.
Yep.
Really? That's it.
It's not realistic.
I didn't like them. I just didn't like the longshoremen. There was no heroes, and I know that's probably the point. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That concept is part of what they're trying to illustrate here, partly because of what the surrounding politics of it was, with the whole communists in Hollywood dibber-dobbing stuff. That just doesn't make for a fun movie. Yeah. If anybody listens to me talk about this at any point right now, the only reason they're going to watch the movie is because they think I'm a jerk. And they're like, I'm going to watch this anyway. Is that a-hole?
I watched a few other reviews on this and, a lot of people felt fairly similar. There was the odd film critic who, just because it's a classic.
I would love to hear them talk about why they loved this movie.
Yeah.
Because I read a few things and I get it. I see the reason it's of value, but I read a few things and it was boring. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not enough. What did you think? I feel as though we've gone this whole time and you haven't really you've asked me some questions and I want to hear what you think. I keep asking.
Yeah. I think I've communicated. It's an okay film. As I said, I would only watch it once, maybe twice. I wasn't convinced of the love relationship between Brando and Eva or Terry.
Yeah.
Probably more the themes. I don't mind dabbling in politics and sort of those ideas. And I think some of the issues that they're communicating we still have today,
Yeah.
with unions and politicians and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just not in the mood for and it feels like it's just in the temperature, in the air all the time.
Well, I don't feel like it provided many solutions or delved into interesting topics. It was kind of very surface level.
I wasn't surprised to hear that it was based ultimately on a series of articles, because I was like, this feels like it was exactly like what I said at the beginning. It feels like it was from a newspaper.
Yep.
And it has all the feeling of that, and it has all of the, emotion and story arc of that.
Yeah.
This happened and this person talked to this person. So they then went after that conversation to this location and had the conversation with this person. And let's go back to the other person they were with. That's a bit how old movies are, but it just felt so, please just either entertain me, like really entertain me. Keep this, like an example about unions and corruption and things that I thought was better. It's a newer movie, so it's really unfair. Like if this movie had a whole bunch of the same story, I'm not criticizing it for being in 1954, but The Irishman covers, corruption and union bosses and those sorts of problems and people, helping with investigations and things. It's a Martin Scorsese film, so he's obviously made a lot of gangster things, and the characters are great. And it's not supposed to feel documentary. It's not supposed to feel raw and on the streets. It's not like a play, because it wasn't a play as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
And it's just it does, number one, it entertains, And sometimes I feel like these things where you're supposed to wrestle with these, or maybe not wrestle with the ideas, but just go, if you chose to think about it, then you would see questions you could ask yourself, about what's the purpose of life and what does it mean to be loyal and all those things you could ask after seeing that movie.
Yeah.
This movie, it felt like you didn't have a choice. Like you confronted with these questions as you watch it. And
we haven't touched on 2 years before the filming of On the Waterfront. What was the director's name?
Elia Kazan
was called before the courts.
House Un-American Activities Commission.
Because he was part of the Communist Party or communist?
I think he was he part of so the guy who directed it was part of a theatre company that had like 8 or 9 other members.
And they were all part of it.
All communist, all held those beliefs. And then his politics changed as the years went on.
Yep.
And then when they pulled him before the commission, as they did for most of Hollywood, he ratted on them and said their names, and that put them on the blacklist, which meant they couldn't work in Hollywood.
Yeah, a bit of stuff I read and listened to, they were saying this movie, the whole agenda was to appease his decision on ratting.
Yeah, and
his friends.
Can you see how it feels a bit like that?
Yeah. But it definitely created a division in the community.
Yeah,
for those that did rat and those that didn't.
Yeah, did Disney rat?
I don't know.
It's funny, the word rat even. He used the word rat to just, did he dib-a-dub? What would you say? Did he inform?
Inform, yeah.
It's interesting, how this all plays out, because the whole idea of like communism entering America in the 50s during the Cold War was a really big, scary problem.
Yeah.
Maybe it was made bigger by the government because they were wanting to have justification for their 3-letter agencies and all those different things.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a real threat.
But I think it pushes people into these groups. It's like there are problems that aren't being addressed. And then like with the director, his name again?
Elia Kazan.
Elia Kazan.
Elia.
Yeah. They go to these fringes to see other solutions here. And the same with like the union. Like something, this rises out of a need for someone to represent the people, but it turns into its own beast.
What are we supposed to do? Because sometimes I hear about unions, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you need a union.
Yeah.
Corporate overlords, stuff them. And then you go, but then the union is putting up signs, join the union or you'll go on the dole. Like if you're not in the union, you're not getting a job here. And you're like, well, no, you can't do that. And then they start to be this strong arm, and then they become their own political power.
Yeah.
Here in Victoria, we've got unions that have a bit more power than they probably should in terms of politics. And what are they? It's like another mini government.
I always find this
So I'm all for unions, but
Yeah.
like at a certain point you go, well, how you need a union to protect against the union because what's our real problem? The human condition, the human spirit.
Yeah, I think ultimately,
Sin
like I
nature.
look at even charities to a certain extent, as they run their course, their motives are good and pure to begin with, but over time they sort of politics and bureaucracy gets involved and it sort of loses its mission.
Yeah.
And I think the same with unions. It's like it needs a whole refresh or shut it down and make another union.
Well, that's what happens in the longshoreman thing. I did read that the people, like they did eventually shut down the union or they have funny names, longshoremen, and then there's another one. The Americans have like if the people who are like riggers and truck drivers, they have a name for them as well. I can't remember. Those unions, and they like every 10 years they'd get busted by the government for something, shut the union down, then reestablish. And then after about 10 or 15 years, again, some corruption would creep in, the mob would get some influence, they'd buy people back, then they'd be all shut down again.
It's the nature of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems that way. It seems that, like I said, the same kind of person is gravitates towards these things. And if I was pivoting away from political discussion and just talking about art and how it should be fun, how movies should be enjoyed and things like that, for me, I like having these themes in movies.
Yeah.
But if you press play on a movie and you can't just get sucked into another world for a period of time, then for me it's just not, unless it's a documentary and but even then the way that it's made tries to pull you into another frame of mind.
It's almost like it should be a side story to another story. Like
but I don't,
rather than the main theme for the movie.
Yeah, I think that some of these ideas, like you can have themes in movies, but if they become the main thing that it's about, the moral or the political elements of it, they're boring. They're so boring. Like I'd rather this be like a swords and sandals epic with all the same concepts because
what's that?
Swords and Sandals is just like a gladiator and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because they use swords and they wear sandals.
Okay.
I didn't invent that, but because what happens is you can get absorbed in a whole world other than your current middle class Australian world.
Yeah.
And it's like your mind can just go on a journey. I can go on a journey. I have more fun with that and not realize these themes are being thrown in there. And afterwards, if you do think about the movie, if you choose to think about the movie and talk to someone about it, don't you think this was a bit odd that they did that, or isn't that important? Rather than it just be so blatant. And I feel as though that's where we're at with Hollywood at the moment, or at least hopefully we're moving away from that. Whereas if people want to make a change in the world and they want to comment on something political or social or, especially with like gender stuff they put in movies and race stuff they put in movies, they don't understand that it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You can want to do these amazing things with art if you want to, but if you go to a museum and they just have articles plastered all over the wall, I mean, technically that's modern art.
Yeah.
But it's so black and white and clear what you're trying to say, like what your opinion is on this exact issue. Then people don't look at it and separate part of their minds from it, and they can't connect because they're thinking about everything in the real world. If you make art, you want to take people on a journey, the same way someone who has a restaurant, probably if they, some restaurants, I guess they want to create an atmosphere that doesn't affect the meal. The chair they sit on and the plate that they eat from will not affect the flavor of the meal, but it will affect how they feel about the meal, which will impact how they experience the food and will impact everything about the experience. And how is it? And, so if you want to say something about racial justice in the world, you might have a better job saying that through a cartoon about a bunch of crabs than you would if you just made an explicit drama about explicitly racial stuff. People might feel, you'll get the sense that you felt like you said it, and people will pat you on the back.
Yeah.
But you probably won't have the same level of long-term cultural impact.
Well, you end up preaching to the choir and you're not going to win anyone over.
And it ultimately is boring. It's really boring. And I mean, not every movie is like that. The movie The Hurricane, I enjoyed.
Yeah,
I mean, I
liked it.
was a teenager when I saw that movie, and I was like moved and captured. But I mean, I haven't rewatched it.
Yeah.
But that was explicitly political.
It's telling a story rather than I think it's the differentiation is between preaching and telling a story. You've got those that are just preaching a message, and it's like,
you can almost tell the heart behind it, and it's so weird. It's almost like, it's almost pseudoscience. You can almost feel the heart behind a piece of art.
Yeah,
heart behind a piece of art. I'll make some really cool rap about that. Yeah, all right. Give me a second to get into my mind. I'm going to drop a verse. You can feel it because it feels like this movie just has that apologetic newspaper letter to the editor kind of vibe. And other movies that maybe don't have that like preachy kind of heart behind them, they're just wanting to tell this story because it's powerful and it speaks to everybody. It lasts. Remember the Titans is another Denzel Washington movie that's got elements of that in it. Yeah. Set in the 60s as well, I think, 60s or 70s. Yeah. And it has lots of things to different things to say.
Yep.
I'm not maybe not remembering the whole movie perfectly, but it didn't feel like it was preaching.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, this felt like it was preaching, and I didn't like it.
Yep.
I hate this movie. Don't watch On the Waterfront.
So Tom, out of 5, I was trying to think what are the eye prosthetics?
Yeah, because it does look like he's got something going on with his eyes.
I'm positive he's got them. So out of 5 eye prosthetics.
Eye prosthetics? Yeah, this is a reference to Brando's swollen brow. I'm going to go with out of 5 swollen brows.
Yeah.
2.
2. That's higher or lower than Gone with the Wind, isn't it?
Yeah, but what did I give Gone with the Wind? I think I really like the first half of Gone with the Wind.
Really?
2. I'm sticking with 2. Why waste time trying to banter over that? What do you think?
I would say 2.5.
2.5. All right, that's On the Waterfront. I might be in a foul mood, and next week go, actually, On the Waterfront's not too bad. I probably am in a foul mood, to be honest.
Wait, I'm changing. I'm giving it a 3.
3.
I think
Nick is trying to account for my bad mood by upgrading every few seconds. 3.5.
It's worth people watching, but it's just watch it with the idea that you won't watch it again.
Yeah, I wouldn't watch it. You could do other things. Don't bother. It's not bad. It's just it's not as fun. It's not fun. Instead, next week we are on to what are we up to?
A really lighthearted movie.
Yes, next week we're getting into it's still in black and white. It's a 1993 film. It's going to be a cracker. This one, Schindler's List. I'm going to say it. I've never watched this movie in full.
I think I've only watched it once and many years ago.
I just started crying. I started crying. I might even get so I'm going to struggle with this movie, but I haven't seen all of it. So I watched The Pianist, but it's definitely going to be interesting and heavy movie. Steven Spielberg, this is his first one.
Yeah.
Yep. He's obviously the first one that he's the Spielbergian master himself. After this, we have Singing in the Rain, and then It's a Wonderful Life, which we'll get to right just before Christmas 2023. Perfect timing. Schindler's List will be fun. So, and we're actually thinking about fun I'm looking forward to seeing this movie because it's not something I've been willing to confront for a while. Are we entertaining the idea of doing 2 films per podcast and doing a secondary film here, Nicholas?
We're undecided. I feel like 40 minutes is good for a podcast length.
Well, here's the issue with 40. Though. I feel as though if I get to a movie that I don't like very much, I don't have much to say about it.
Yeah.
And you have wonderful notes about things. I'm like, I don't care. I hated the movie.
Yeah. But sometimes you hit parts of where the gold comes out, where you're wrestling a bit. You're like, I got nothing, but then you do.
Yeah, when I make bad jokes about things. So
we're both sitting
Yeah, it's because we want to keep our elbows, but I think that camera's not rolling anymore. So let's keep everything down the line and just say thank you for watching.
Been a pleasure.
It's been fun hanging out with Nick and hopefully with a few people out there. Sorry that I've been in a bad mood because I saw On The Waterfront and I didn't like it. Next time we will record in the evening with a maybe we should definitely record like with some sort of like beverage and like a warmer atmosphere lights
just to relax you a bit more. You've been tense, Tom.
I've been tense, grumpy. And we'll see you next time on the Video Lineup Podcast.
Thanks for watching.